The Arcturian fleet hung in orbit, warships dripping with energy weapons, expecting the first wave of human fighters. What they received instead was a broadcast. Not of defiance, but of complex economic data scrolling across every available channel. The fluctuating stock prices of Arcturian mining conglomerates, the plummeting futures of their primary energy source, the surging cost of nutrient-paced their staple food. A silent, bewildering stream of numbers flooded the screens of the Dominator flagship of the invading armada, casting an eerie green glow across the bridge. "What in the void is this?" Commander Zara snarled, her chitinous brow ridges furrowing. She gestured sharply with a clawed hand. "Helm, run a threat assessment. Is this some kind of code?" The tactical officer, his multifaceted eyes darting across his console, shook his head. "Negative, Commander, it appears to be exactly what it looks like. Economic data, commodity prices, stock market tickers." Zara's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Impossible. They send us accounting while we're preparing to vaporize their cities." Thousands of kilometers below, inside a secure, shielded facility carved deep beneath the ruins of London, Mark Jackson watched the Arcturian fleet's arrival on a bank of monitors. The screens displayed not tactical readouts or weapon schematics, but intricate graphs charting the flow of resources across the Arcturian empire. He adjusted his glasses, a faint smile playing on his lips. "They've taken the bait," he said, his voice calm amidst the controlled chaos of the operations room. "Begin Phase 1. His team, a diverse group of economists, sociologists, and linguists, responded with practiced efficiency. "Phase 1 initiated, sir," a young woman with vibrant purple hair confirmed, her fingers flying across her keyboard. Mark turned to address the assembled team. "For centuries, they've prepared for war. They expect a fight measured in megatons and casualties. We're offering them something far more dangerous, a mirror, a reflection of the unsustainable system they've built, teetering on the brink of collapse. We simply nudge it." 10 years prior, the skeletal remains of skyscrapers clawed at the sky, monuments to humanity's own near destruction. The resource wars had ravaged the planet, leaving scars both physical and psychological. In the aftermath, a radical decision was made. Every credit, every erg of energy previously devoted to military spending was redirected. Not to rebuilding armies, but to understanding economies, societies, and the subtle levers of power that lay hidden beneath the surface of conflict. The Arcturians, a species with a genetic predisposition towards aggression, presented a unique challenge. Their very biology drove them to conquer and consume, their society structured around a constant cycle of expansion and resource acquisition. War wasn't just a policy for them, it was in their blood. "Their society is a pressure cooker," Mark explained during an earlier briefing, holographic projections of Arcturian cities shimmering in the air. "Rigid hierarchies, suppressed social mobility, a dependence on war profits to pacify the masses, and a near-total lack of economic diversity. They conquer, they consume, and they move on, leaving devastation in their wake. We're going to show them the true cost of that devastation." Back on the Dominator, Zara slammed her fist on the command console. "Enough. Ignore the transmission. Prepare for ground assault. I want boots on the ground within the hour. These economic games won't stop us." But even as she spoke, reports began trickling in. Minor disruptions at first. Supply lines delayed, worker strikes in key mining sectors, a growing unease spreading through the lower ranks. On Earth, news reports painted a picture of global panic. Crowds surged through city streets, hoarding supplies. Governments issued increasingly desperate appeals for calm. But amidst the fear, pockets of organized resistance emerged, fueled by years of preparation. Hacktivists launched cyber attacks against Arcturian communication networks, disrupting their logistics. Activists organized boycotts of Arcturian products, crippling their trade. Ordinary citizens found ingenious ways to sabotage Arcturian assets, not with bombs or bullets, but with carefully placed economic disruptions. "Initiate Phase 2, Mark ordered, his eyes fixed on the monitors. "Targeted disinformation campaigns, highlight their war crimes, expose the economic inequality within their own society, let them see the cracks in their facade." Zara dismissed the human actions as trivial, mere pinpricks against the might of her armada, but the reports kept coming, each one more troubling than the last. Unrest spreading through the lower decks, dissent among the officer corps. A growing sense of unease that their glorious conquest was somehow unraveling. Mark anticipated their response. "They'll try to counter our economic offensive, propaganda, market manipulation. They'll attempt to regain control of the narrative." He paused, his gaze hardening. "That's when we unleash Project Nightingale." A holographic image appeared, depicting a sustainable Arcturian city, powered by renewable energy, its citizens engaged in peaceful, productive pursuits. "A long-term plan," Mark explained, "to offer them a path towards a peaceful, sustainable society, a future beyond endless war." Suddenly, a priority message flashed across the main view screen of the Dominator. Zara straightened, her mandibles snapping shut. The message was short, brutal, and utterly devoid of nuance. "Surrender, or face complete economic and physical annihilation." Reports flooded Arcturian newsfeeds, protests in the diamond mines of Xylos, strikes crippling the vital energy refineries on Kepler 186f. Inflation spiraled, resources dwindled, and the average Arcturian, used to a life of conquest-fueled plenty, felt the pinch. The human economic disruption was biting deep. Zara, supreme commander of the Arcturian armada, watched the cascading crises on a dozen screens. Her mandibles clicked in frustration. "Silence them," she rasped, her voice amplified across the command deck. "Crush the dissent. Show them what happens when they question the glory of the Empire." On Xylos, the crackdown was swift and brutal. Riot control drones unleashed sonic blasts and concussion grenades, scattering protesters who just hours before had chanted for peace and economic reform. Tara, an Arcturian lieutenant in the fleet's intelligence division, watched the feed from her workstation, a knot forming in her stomach. The human broadcasts, they echoed in her mind. Calm voices presenting data, not threats. Images of human families, not warriors. Were they truly as weak as the official narrative claimed? She accessed classified data, navigating layers of encryption with practiced ease. The holographic projection swam before her eyes, stark graphs illustrating the devastating long-term consequences of the war. Depleted resources, collapsing infrastructure, societal disintegration. A cold dread washed over her. Back on Earth, Mark's team monitored the escalating Arcturian propaganda. "They're trying to paint us as weak, divided," Anya, the team's lead analyst, said, pointing to a particularly egregious example, a doctored image of Earth's leaders brawling in the United Nations. "Same old playbook." "Time for Phase 3, Mark said, his gaze unwavering. "Let's give the Arcturian people something else to fight about." Within hours, leaked documents began to surface on encrypted channels, evidence of massive war profiteering among the Arcturian elite, exorbitant contracts awarded to Zara's cronies, lavish estates built on the backs of suffering citizens. The information spread like wildfire, amplified by human-engineered meme viruses and cleverly disguised news bots. On the bridge of the flagship Devastator, Zara received a string of increasingly alarming reports. "Morale is declining, Supreme Commander," her first officer reported, his voice tight with barely suppressed anxiety. "There are questions being asked. Soldiers are hesitant to fire on their own people." Tara, her conscience now a relentless tormentor, initiated contact with a known dissident group on the Arcturian home world, using a secure channel she discovered during a routine security audit. "I have information," she typed, her fingers trembling. Information that can help. She requested a secure drop point, a place to run, to hide, to atone. Mark, meanwhile, anticipated the Arcturians' next move. They'll try to manipulate global markets, he said, pacing before the holographic display. Stabilize their economy, destabilize ours. Classic desperation play. Operation Midas, he announced. Time to turn their desperation into our advantage. A montage of Earth's traders followed, screens flashing with arcane symbols and fluctuating graphs. They moved with a precision born of algorithms and human intuition, buying and selling currencies, shorting Arcturian resource futures, and strategically investing in sectors poised to benefit from the Arcturian economic collapse. Tara, stationed on the bridge of the Devastator, witnessed a scene that solidified her grit. A transport ship, carrying suspected dissidents, was brought alongside. The screams of the prisoners, brutally suppressed by security forces, echoed through the corridors. She could no longer be a part of this. She used her position in intelligence to subtly sabotage Arcturian propaganda efforts, replacing inflammatory slogans with vague platitudes, burying key messages in layers of bureaucratic jargon. The effect was subtle, but noticeable: a dulling of the Arcturian war fervor, a growing sense of apathy. Information, carefully selected and subtly altered, found its way to human analysts, providing invaluable insights into Arcturian vulnerabilities. Their energy grid is surprisingly fragile, Anya reported, pointing to a schematic highlighted in crimson. A few well-placed disruptions could cripple their entire war effort. Zara, her face a mask of fury, authorized increasingly aggressive tactics. Raids on civilian infrastructure, targeted assassinations of prominent economists, even the deployment of a limited-yield plasma weapon against a densely populated urban center. The galactic community watched in horror, condemnation mounting. That night, haunted by the faces of the dead, Tara reached out to Mark through an encrypted channel, her message a desperate plea. "My name is Tara," she typed, her heart pounding in her chest. "I am an Arcturian lieutenant. I have information you need, but you must promise to listen." Mark, after hours of debate with his team, poring over her message, analyzing every word, every byte of data, made a decision. "Establish a secure comm link," he said, his voice grim. "But proceed with extreme caution. This could be a trap." The connection flickered to life, and a distorted image of Tara appeared on the screen. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and drive. "There's something you need to know about my people," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Something genetic. We are predisposed to aggression, to warfare. It's in our blood, we call it the war gene." "The Arcturian Central Bank," Tara said, her voice tight, "its security is layered. But I've seen the schematics. The core protocols are surprisingly archaic, relics from a time before quantum entanglement encryption. I've also compiled a list of key personnel. Several are susceptible to persuasion, or perhaps financial incentives." She pushed a datapad across the table, its surface shimmering with holographic diagrams and encrypted files. Mark Jackson scanned the data, his brow furrowed. "Bribery isn't exactly in our playbook, Tara. It's a tool," she countered, her gaze unwavering. "A means to an end. Zara won't hesitate to use far crueler methods. This is a scalpel, not a bludgeon." Within hours, Mark's team had woven Tara's intel into a sophisticated cyber attack. Lines of code cascaded across monitors, each a tiny hammer blow against the Arcturian financial fortress. The attack focused on exploiting vulnerabilities in the legacy systems, bypassing the newer security measures entirely. The Arcturian Central Bank's network shuddered, then buckled. Firewalls crumbled. Data streams hemorrhaged. Within minutes, the attackers had burrowed deep into the system's core, extracting terabytes of sensitive financial data. Then came the kill switch. The Arcturian financial system ground to a halt. Transaction requests timed out. Markets froze. ATMs went dark. The digital arteries of Arcturian society had been severed. Panic bloomed like a toxic flower across Arcturus. Zara, her face a mask of fury, addressed the Arcturian people. This is an act of war. Earth has crippled our economy with a cowardly cyber attack. We will not stand for this. We will respond with overwhelming force. Her voice, amplified across the planet, dripped with venom. Mark watched the broadcast, a grim satisfaction etched on his face. Then he pressed a button. A new file began circulating through Arcturian social media channels. It contained irrefutable evidence that Zara's family had amassed vast wealth through wartime profiteering, skimming from military contracts, and exploiting the suffering of ordinary Arcturians. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Protests erupted in cities across Arcturus, fueled by outrage and betrayal. Zara's credibility, already weakened by the economic collapse, crumbled completely. Meanwhile, on an Arcturian warship, Tara slipped through the darkened corridors, disguised as a maintenance worker. Her heart hammered against her ribs with each step. The heavy wrench in her hand felt like a lead weight. She reached the designated escape pod, her fingers trembling as she punched in the override code. A red light flashed, an alarm blared. She sprinted, her breath catching in her throat. Security drones swarmed around her, their energy weapons humming. She dove into the escape pod just as a laser blast seared the wall beside her. The pod launched, hurtling through the black void of space. She transmitted her location to Mark, her message encrypted with a code only he possessed. Hours later, a sleek human transport ship materialized beside her escape pod. The hatch hissed open, and a figure in a pressure suit reached out a gloved hand. Back at the secure human facility, Tara sat across from Mark, a steaming mug of synth tea warming her hands. "Zara will stop at nothing to crush Earth," she said, her voice hoarse. "She truly believes that war is the only path to Arcturian glory. It's ingrained in our culture almost. Genetic." "Genetic?" Mark asked, his eyes narrowing. Tara nodded. "There's a theory, a fringe theory, that Arcturians possess a war gene, a predisposition towards aggression and violence. It's never been proven, but it resonates with what we've seen," Mark finished. "If it's true, if there's a genetic component, then perhaps there's a way to counteract it." Days later, a team of human scientists led by Dr. Anya Sharma huddled around a holographic projection of the Arcturian genome. "The sequence is complex," Anya said, her voice tinged with excitement. "But we've identified several potential markers associated with aggressive behavior. It's like they're hardwired for war." "Could gene therapy work?" Mark asked. Anya hesitated. "It's possible, but it's also risky. We could be altering fundamental aspects of their being. There could be unintended consequences." The ethical debates raged within Mark's team. Some argued that gene therapy was a necessary evil, the only way to prevent a devastating war. Others warned against playing God, arguing that it was a violation of Arcturian autonomy. While the ethical battle raged, the Arcturians launched their counter-offensive. Sophisticated cyber attacks targeted Earth's critical infrastructure, probing for weaknesses in the global network. Mark implemented a multi-layered defense system, powered by advanced AI algorithms that anticipated and neutralized the Arcturian cyber threats. Firewalls hardened, data streams rerouted. The AI learned and adapted, constantly evolving to stay one step ahead of the attackers. But the Arcturians were relentless. They found a chink in the armor, a vulnerability in the aging global communications network. Suddenly, across Earth, comms went down. News feeds froze. Social media went silent. The world plunged into a chaotic silence. "They've severed our connection to each other," Mark said grimly. "They're trying to isolate us, to sow discord and fear." "There is a way to influence them," Tara said, her eyes gleaming with an idea. A cultural ritual, a song of lament that would, if subtly altered, frame humanity not as invaders, but as liberators from Zara's tyranny. Days turned into weeks as the scientists worked tirelessly on the gene therapy. Finally, they achieved a breakthrough. The first tests on Arcturian subjects showed a significant reduction in aggressive behavior, replaced by a newfound sense of calm and cooperation. But the victory was short-lived. A message flashed across Mark's screen. Zara has issued a kill order for Tara, bounty placed, branded a traitor. The hunt had begun. The holographic displays flickered erratically, lines of alien code blurring into incomprehensible noise. "Damn it," Lena muttered, pushing a stray strand of purple hair from her face. "They're not just blocking us, they're actively corrupting the data streams. It's like trying to rebuild a sandcastle in a hurricane." Mark watched, his face hardened. The Arcturian cyber offensive was far more sophisticated than anticipated. "What's the vector?" he asked, his voice calm despite the rising tension in the room. "It's subtle," Giant replied, his fingers flying across the console. "They're exploiting vulnerabilities in our legacy systems, using them as backdoors to inject misinformation. It's not a brute force attack, it's social engineering for computers." Suddenly, a piercing alarm shattered the tense silence. Red lights pulsed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "Security breach, Sector Gamma 7 compromised," a synthesized voice announced. Mark's head snapped up. "Tara!" He didn't wait for confirmation. He was already moving, security personnel falling into step around him. They found her apartment in chaos. The remains of a meal lay scattered across the floor, a faint, sickly sweet odor lingering in the air. A med tech knelt beside Tara, who lay unconscious on the floor, her breathing shallow. "Poison," the med tech confirmed grimly. "A fast-acting neurotoxin. We managed to stabilize her, but another few minutes." Mark felt a cold fury rising within him. "Relocate her," he ordered, his voice hard. "Secure facility level 5 clearance. I want triple redundancy on life support and a full bioscan every 5 minutes." He turned to the head of security. "I want to know how this happened. Every security log, every employee file, scrub it clean. Find the leak." Days later, in the sterile confines of the Level 5 research lab, scientists huddled around a holographic projection of an Arcturian brain. The image shimmered, highlighting areas of activity and suppression. "The gene therapy is effective in reducing agar Dr. Ion," Dr. Ramirez explained, her voice infused with concern. "But we're seeing unforeseen side effects. Cognitive functions are being impacted. Creativity, abstract thought, problem solving, they're all diminished." Mark felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Quantify diminished," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Preliminary data suggests a 15 to 20p Dr. NT reduction," Dr. Ramirez replied. "It's significant. We can't proceed without further testing." A news report flickered on a nearby screen, drawing Mark's attention. Zara's image filled the frame, her mandibles clicking with righteous indignation. "Humanity claims to offer peace," she declared, her voice resonating with controlled anger. "But their methods are reckless, their understanding of galactic dynamics dangerously flawed." I challenge Mark Jackson to a public debate on a neutral platform to address these concerns. Let the galaxy decide who truly seeks peace and who sows chaos. Mark watched, his expression unreadable. He saw the challenge not as a threat but as an opportunity, a chance to expose Zara's lies and reveal the truth about her corrupt war machine. "I accept," he said, his voice calm and resolute. "Let's give the galaxy something to talk about." The debate was broadcast across a dozen star systems, holographic feeds beaming images of Mark and Zara into homes and starships alike. Zara, in her pristine military uniform, exuded an aura of authority and conviction. "Humanity's economic warfare is destabilizing the galaxy," she argued, her voice sharp and precise. Their reckless manipulation of markets is creating chaos and suffering, and their so-called defense systems are laughably inadequate, relying on outdated technology and easily exploitable algorithms. She paused for effect, her crimson eyes locking onto the camera. I can prove it. A collective gasp rippled through the audience as Zara presented irrefutable evidence that Earth's core defense system relied on a single, easily bypassed algorithm. The vulnerability was glaring, a gaping hole in humanity's armor. Mark's face betrayed a flicker of shock, but he quickly regained his composure. Commander Zara speaks of vulnerabilities, he said, his voice calm and measured. But perhaps she should focus on the vulnerabilities within her own house. I have here evidence of extensive financial corruption, implicating Commander Zara in the embezzlement of war funds, the manipulation of Arcturian markets, and the secret funding of this very war she claims to abhor. Holographic displays flashed across the screen, showing bank transfers, secret accounts, and intercepted communications. The evidence was damning, painting a picture of Zara as a ruthless manipulator driven by greed and ambition. The debate ended inconclusively, public opinion divided. Some were swayed by Zara's accusations of recklessness, while others were shocked by the evidence of her corruption. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The answer came swiftly and brutally. Alarms blared across Earth as the Arcturian fleet launched a coordinated attack, targeting the core defense system. The vulnerability Zara had revealed was now being exploited to its fullest extent. They're bypassing the firewalls. Lena shouted, her voice strained. The algorithm is collapsing. We're losing control. Mark's team worked frantically, their fingers flying across keyboards, lines of code scrolling across their faces. The air crackled with energy as they raced against the clock to develop a patch, a countermeasure to the Arcturian assault. We're running out of time, Giant yelled. The system is about to crash. Tara, her face pale but determined, studied the holographic displays, her brow furrowed in concentration. They're focusing their attack on the central processing unit, she said, pointing to a specific location on the screen. They're using a cascading algorithm designed to overload the system with recursive commands, but they're predictable. They always rely on brute force. They'll try to initiate a full system reset in 3 minutes. Mark's eyes widened. Can we counter it? Yes, Tara said, her voice firm. If we can inject a counter command sequence within the next 2 minutes, we can override their reset and regain control. The team worked with feverish intensity, their movements precise and coordinated. Lines of code flew across the screen, converging into a single, elegant patch. Patch deployed, Lena announced, her voice hoarse. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room as the defense system stabilized, averting disaster by mere seconds. But the respite was brief. Holographic projections flickered to life, showing the Galactic Council convening an emergency session. The atmosphere was heavy with tension, the faces of the council members grim and disapproving. The council has received compelling evidence of Earth's destabilizing economic strategies, the presiding officer announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. A resolution has been proposed condemning these actions and demanding an immediate cessation. All in favor. Hands rose in unison, the vote overwhelmingly in favor of condemning Earth. The council, it seemed, had sided with Zara. But Mark wasn't finished. He had been digging, probing, searching for the truth behind the council's decision, and he had found it. I have here evidence, he announced, his voice calm and resolute, that Commander Zara has been secretly funding members of this very council, manipulating them to support her war efforts. The evidence is irrefutable. He released the evidence, a flood of financial records and intercepted communications that exposed Zara's corruption and the council's complicity. The broadcast was sent across the galaxy, reaching every corner of known space. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Outrage and division ripped through the Galactic Council, alliances crumbling, accusations flying. A vote of no confidence was called, plunging the council into chaos. Zara, facing imminent arrest by elements within her own society who could see the council corruption, launched a desperate attack on the human facility where Tara was being held. She would silence Tara before the Arcturian defector could testify. The screech of tearing metal ripped through the facility as Zara's shock troops hammered against the outer defenses. Alarms blared, bathing the corridors in strobing red light. Tara felt the tremor in the floor as her security detail hustled her towards the emergency bunker, their faces grim. Each step was punctuated by the staccato bursts of pulse rifles echoing closer. There through the perimeter, one of the guards barked into his comm, moving her to Sector 7. News of the attack reached Mark in his command center. His face tightened, but his voice remained calm. Reroute all available defense grids to Sector 7. Initiate code Omega. I want every human and allied vessel within a 5 light-year radius on alert. His fingers danced across the console, redirecting power, reprioritizing shields. The holographic display shifted, showing the converging defense forces. Deep within the bunker, a reinforced steel door hissed shut behind Tara. The air was thick with the metallic tang of recycled oxygen and the low hum of emergency power. "They'll try to breach the main door," Tara said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the distant explosions. "Arcturian siege tactics favor brute force, but they're predictable." She accessed a schematic of the facility on a nearby console, her fingers flying across the controls. "There's a weakness in their approach. They'll focus all their energy on overcoming that single barrier, ignoring secondary systems." Mark's image flickered onto the screen. "What do you suggest?" "Repurpose the engineering drones in Sub-Level 4. Reroute their plasma cutters to overload the door's stress points after they begin their breach. It'll create a cascade failure." Mark hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was a risky maneuver, relying on precise timing and Tara's intimate knowledge of Arcturian tactics, but he saw the unwavering conviction in her eyes. "Do it," he said. "I trust your judgment." He knew that humanity's survival often hinged on trusting the unconventional, on embracing perspectives from unexpected sources. Outside, the rhythmic pounding intensified as Zara's forces deployed a plasma torch against the bunker door. Molten metal dripped from the frame as the Arcturians focused their assault. Inside, the repurposed engineering drones whirred to life, their cutting beams aligning with predetermined stress points on the door's internal structure. With a precisely timed sequence, Tara activated the drones. The plasma cutters sliced through the weakened sections as the Arcturian torch reached a critical point. A deafening explosion rocked the bunker as the door buckled inward, showering the attackers with superheated debris. The assault faltered, momentarily stunned by the unexpected counterattack. But the bunker door was compromised, a gaping hole now visible. "Therethrough," a security officer yelled. Tara turned to Mark, her expression grim. "Zara won't stop here. She's not just driven by Arcturian desires for expansion. She profits from this war. The medical supplies she steals, the resources she plunders. It all lines her pockets." Mark's eyes narrowed. "So this is personal for her. More than you know. There are factions within the Arcturian military who oppose her methods, who see the damage she's inflicting on our society. I can reach them. I can transmit a coded message, alerting them to her location, her crimes. It's a risk, Tara, if she intercepts it." "Then this ends here," Tara said, her voice resolute. "But if it works, it could fracture her command structure." Mark studied her face, seeing the tenacity etched in every line. He knew he couldn't stop her. "Do it," he said, "but be careful." Tara nodded, her fingers already flying across the console, crafting the coded message. She sent it, a silent prayer accompanying each byte of data as it sped through the comms network. Too late, she realized the encryption was already compromised. A red alert flashed across the console. Incoming transmission intercepted. A technician shouted. Zara's face, distorted with rage, appeared on the screen. "Traitor," she snarled. "You will pay for this, Tara." The transmission cut out. "She knows," Tara whispered, her blood running cold. "She's coming." The lights flickered as a small team, led by Zara herself, infiltrated the bunker, bypassing the main defenses through a rarely used maintenance tunnel. The remaining human security forces braced for a close-quarters battle, pulse rifles raised. The air crackled with energy as pulse rounds slammed into the metal walls. Zara, clad in powered armor, moved with brutal efficiency, cutting down the human guards with precise bursts of energy. Tara found herself face to face with Zara, the two Arcturians separated by only a few meters. Zara's eyes burned with hatred. "You always were weak, Tara," Zara spat, "clinging to your human sympathies, but your weakness ends here." "This war is pointless, Zara," Tara countered, her voice filled with conviction. "The Galactic Council is crumbling. They've lost all credibility. The Arcturians have lost any justification for this war." "Justification?" Zara laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "I don't need justification, I need power, and you're standing in my way." She lunged, her claws extended. Zara's attack was swift and brutal. Tara was prepared but still outmatched. Zara's lifetime of military training was a stark contrast to Tara's recent experiences. The two exchanged blows, the room echoing with the sounds of their struggle. Zara, fueled by rage, pressed her advantage, forcing Tara to fight defensively. Seeing Tara in danger, Mark acted without hesitation. He raised his wrist-mounted non-lethal disruptor, aiming carefully. A burst of focused energy slammed into Zara, disrupting her nervous system. She crumpled to the ground, paralyzed but conscious. At that moment, the bunker door hissed open, and a squad of Arcturian soldiers, led by a stern-faced general, stormed into the room. "Zara," the general said, his voice cold. "You are under arrest for treason, corruption, and crimes against the Arcturian people." News of Zara's arrest spread like wildfire, broadcast throughout the Arcturian Empire. The evidence of her corruption, meticulously compiled by Tara, was undeniable. Protests erupted on Arcturus, demanding an end to the war and a new era of peace. The Galactic Council, already teetering on the brink of collapse, dissolved amid accusations of corruption and incompetence. A power vacuum yawned, threatening to engulf the galactic community in chaos. Tara, hailed as a hero by both humans and reformist elements within Arcturian society, found herself adrift, caught between two worlds. She struggled with her identity, unsure of her place in a rapidly changing galaxy. Mark approached her, his expression warm and understanding. "The Arcturian government is in disarray. They need someone they can trust, someone who understands both their culture and ours, someone who can bridge the gap." He paused. "I want to offer you a position, Tara. A liaison between Earth and the emerging Arcturian government." Tara looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. You trust me that much?" Mark smiled. "I've seen what you're capable of. You have a unique perspective, a unique ability to see beyond the divisions that separate us. We need that now more than ever." A slow smile spread across Tara's face. "Then I accept," she said. "Let's build a better future together." The episode concluded with Tara accepting Mark's offer, setting the stage for a new era of cooperation between Earth and Arcturus, and a completely new galactic council, one perhaps guided by humanity's unique blend of empathy and ingenuity. The holographic broadcast flickered above the conference table, displaying the somber face of a high-ranking Arcturian official. His antennae drooped, a stark contrast to the rigid posture of Zara's regime. "People of Earth," his voice, translated into clear English, resonated with an unfamiliar humility. "In the wake of Zara's removal, we are forming a provisional government." We formally request a ceasefire and, if it is within your capacity, humanitarian aid. Our infrastructure is compromised. In the Earth Alliance war room, transformed into a coordination center, Mark nodded grimly. Compromised is an understatement. Let's get those supply routes mapped. Tara, your insights on resource allocation within their territories are invaluable. Tara, standing beside him, her expression a mix of relief and concern, pointed to a sector map. This region is heavily reliant on imported proteins. If we can prioritize that, it will stabilize the population and reduce the risk of further unrest. As the first cargo ships departed Earth, laden with food, medicine, and construction materials, human and Arcturian scientists worked side by side in newly established research facilities. The gene therapy program, once a closely guarded secret, was now a collaborative effort aimed at widespread implementation. Within a year, the results were undeniable. In Arcturian cities, disputes that once escalated into violent brawls were now perseverance through negotiation. Market squares, previously filled with the shouts of aggression, echoed with the murmur of bartering and trade. The change wasn't absolute, but it was measurable, palpable. Representatives from across the galaxy began arriving on Earth. The Andromedan Collective, the Krill Confederacy, even the enigmatic Zidonians all sought audiences with Earth's leaders. The Galactic Council had fractured, its corruption exposed, its authority dissolved. A power vacuum yawned and species were looking to Earth to fill it. Mark, exhausted but resolute, addressed his team. They need a framework, a new governing body. Something built on principles, not power. The Galactic Cooperative Assembly was born, its charter explicitly prohibiting military intervention and emphasizing diplomatic solutions to conflicts. Economic cooperation, social understanding, mutual respect, these were its cornerstones. Tara, her antennae held high with pride, stood before the inaugural session of the assembly, a newly appointed ambassador. Arcturus, she declared, her voice ringing with conviction, pledges its full support to this assembly. We have learned through bitter experience that true strength lies not in conquest but in cooperation. Then, it was Mark's turn. He stood before the assembled representatives, his gaze sweeping across the diverse faces. Humanity, he began, his voice calm and steady, believes in a future where conflict is a relic of the past, a future built on shared values, mutual benefit, and unwavering commitment to peace. He paused, his eyes meeting Tara's across the chamber. We offer our economic models, our social strategies, not as tools of dominance, but as pathways to prosperity for all. Let us work together, not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners, building a galaxy where every species can thrive. A montage unfolded. Thriving trade routes crisscrossing the galaxy, collaborative research projects unlocking new scientific frontiers, cultural festivals celebrating the diversity of life. Humanity's economic models were adopted by species eager to escape the cycle of conflict, fostering increased trade, cultural exchange, and understanding. In a shared office on a joint Earth-Arcturian research station, Mark and Tara reviewed data streams, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. The aggression inhibitors are showing long-term efficacy, Tara noted, a smile gracing her lips. Mark nodded. It's a start, but the real work is fostering understanding, building bridges between cultures. Humanity's reputation as a force for peace and prosperity spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other species to embrace diplomacy and cooperation. The galaxy was not without its challenges, its conflicts, but a new paradigm had been established. The final scene. On a verdant park on a newly terraformed planet, children from different species played together, their laughter echoing through the air. An Arcturian child helped a human child build a sandcastle, while a Krill child shared a strange, bioluminescent fruit with an Andromedan. There was no fear, no animosity, only the innocent joy of shared experience. The gene therapy combined with humanity's influence had sown the seeds of a more peaceful future. The galaxy, once teetering on the brink of endless war, had found a new path, a path paved not with weapons, but with understanding.